Looking at me. Hello everyone. So I just read this book on Tyranny by Timothy Snyder. I've reviewed another one of Snyder's books on here, on freedom, which is really good. It's much thicker than this book. This book is a sit down and read in 2 hours book. You can read it on the way to work and back in a day quite easily, and it's 20 lessons really on how to prevent totalitarianism. Snyder is actually the Levin Professor of History at Yale University. Writes really well. He's written a few more books. I'll probably read them all now. There's On Freedom, there's Our Malady, there's On Tyranny, there's The Road to Unfreedom, and there's Black Earth. And here's something by Svetlana Alexievich, winner of the Nobel Prize in Literature. We are rapidly ripening for fascism. This American writer leaves us with no illusions about ourselves. That's quite powerful. Then Masha Gessen, author of The Future is History. Snyder reasons with unparalleled clarity, throwing the past and future into sharp relief. He is good. So this book is short, like I said, and it's 20 chapters. And I think what might be a good idea is just to, I'll read you the little intro on the back, which is from the end of one of his chapters. The Founding Fathers tried to protect us from the threat they knew, the tyranny that overcame ancient democracy. Today our political order faces new threats, not unlike the totalitarianism of the 20th century. We are no wiser than the Europeans who saw democracy yield to fascism, Nazism or communism. Our advantage is that we might learn from their experience. Nice way to sum up the book, actually. So there's a really good introduction, and then Chapter 1 is simply called Do Not Bait. Here we go, I'll just read you the chapter titles, right? And then give you a quick summary. It'll be a brief summary, so even if I read bits of the book, it won't give you enough to give you any spoilers. Hopefully it will just give you enough hooks to say, I want to learn more about this. And then go and get the book, then buy the book. And no, I don't get any commissions or anything. I just think it's a good book that you should read. I'll give it an 8 out of 10 in advance. Chapter 1, Do Not Obey in Advance. What's this about? So when Hitler was taking over Germany, the Western world, was not taking over Germany, he'd already taken over Germany, right? When he was invading other countries and everything, and just basically being a hard fascist. The great powers, France, America, Britain, they had no problem with it. They were fine with it. Most of them were very anti-Semitic at the time anyway, so they knew he was killing Jews and everything. I mean, Churchill's the one who said, I have no problem with a weaker race being replaced by a stronger race. So, it was not really an issue. And because nobody kind of disobeyed Hitler's whole thing, he was able to just rapidly take over a lot of the world. I mean, I think Britain and America helped him carve up parts of Ukraine and Czechoslovakia, didn't they? And then he invaded the Soviet Russia as well, and eventually betrayed them and started attacking them as well. But you're a bit of a fool if you trust fascists. And it was only because Poland fought back and was in a treaty with the UK that anybody decided to oppose Hitler, begrudgingly. He came to power, Churchill came to power in 1940, May, I think it was, April, May, and then in May announced the beginning of the Battle of Britain. We will just fight and never stop. That was his, that's what made him, and that's what really prevented the whole world from falling to Hitler's fascism. So everybody else obeyed in advance, and people are doing it now. What's a good example? A good example is all the reform voters, They don't know any of the policies, they're just obeying in advance. They'll get screwed. The whole country will get screwed. Number 2, defend institutions. Join institutions, take part in them, because institutions will outlive you and they'll do more work than you can by yourself. So what's an example here? If I've got a friend of mine who works for Friends of the Earth. He's not just somebody who thinks climate change is a problem. He's gone and actually made it something. He joined an institution. He does work that has an impact. Beware of the one-party state. So this is a bit like what Trump's done, and creating, if the other party should have anything to say against you, it's fake news. anybody who opposes you is treason, etc., etc. It's like Netanyahu in Israel as well, you know. It's an emergency measure, so I have total power. That's what Hitler did. He, somebody set the German Parliament building, I've forgotten what it's called now, sorry, on fire, and so he said, all right, emergency powers now. And those emergency powers lasted all the way until the end of the Second World War. That's beware of the one-party state. Take responsibility for the face of the world. For the face of the world here, he's talking about symbols. So, you know, when Jews in Germany were painted with a yellow star, I think it was, yeah, that's a symbol that says bad, and it just blocks everything else. So, you know, for example, here there's the whole flying the St. George flag. There's nothing wrong with that. He's the patron saint of a lot of countries, but the symbol is basically an anti-immigration symbol, and you obey the symbols, and that takes away from the discourse. It's just, you know, here's my flag. So careful of how you represent the world. Don't just accept symbols. Ask people, why are you putting that up? What does that mean? In Germany, they used to paint signs for German stores, anything that wasn't, you know, and Jewish stores, and then just by marking them, business was affected, and then businesses were targeted. Kristallnacht and everything else resulted from that. Remember professional ethics, things like policemen not just shooting people on an order. Yeah, if people had remembered those, if the civil servants who recorded all the deaths, all the mass shootings of the Romanians, the minorities, the Jews, the disabled people, had said, hang on, this isn't really what we're meant to do, is it? If the lawyers were overrepresented in the higher echelons of the Nazi party, if they'd actually questioned what they were being asked to do because of their professional standards, it wouldn't have been possible. Be wary of paramilitaries. People like ICE for Trump. You know, for the settlers in Israel, well, the army just protects them anyway. Those are the people who will eventually end up crushing dissent. To some extent, the police who go so heavy-handed on pro-Palestine protests or anything else which one should be cast as, you know, terrorist. So be reflective if you must be armed. Don't shoot just on an order. Yeah. Stand out. Do things that other people aren't doing. He tells the story here of a young girl in Warsaw whose brother had befriended a Jewish family, and just before the Nazis went into the Warsaw ghettos and killed about 10,000 people there, deported about 250,000 to a death camp, she was going in. She went in about 12 times over the course of a couple of months, taking medicine, taking food, at great risk to herself, and eventually got one family out, saving them from certain death. People thought she was mad. She stood out, but when you look back, history where it hasn't been rewritten shows her as the example to follow. Be kind to our language. This is not just shouting slogans, you know, not just shouting, you know, make America great again, or stop the boats, or we want our country back, whatever that fucking means. The country's still here. Where did it go? Yeah. Once again, it's a, you know, you're bypassing thinking, you're bypassing actually questioning. You know, river to the sea. From the Israeli side, I'm saying here, not the Palestinian side, because apparently when Palestinians say it's a terrorist thing, but it's actually in the Likud Greater Israel plan. It has been since the 70s. Kill all Palestinians and Arabs and make everything Jewish from the river to the sea. Yeah. So you've got to be careful with language. You can't just go repeating it. You've got to think. Believe in truth. I can't actually remember what that one was about, so I'm going to go to chapter 10 and read you the beginning of it. Let's see. Believe in truth. To abandon facts is to abandon freedom. If nothing is true, then no one can criticize power, because there is no basis upon which to do so. If nothing is true, then all is spectacle. The biggest wallet pays for the most blinding lights. Fake news. They say that a lot in the States. Here it's wokery. Yeah. That's basically just spectacle. And once again, it's using slogans to stop thinking. Investigate. This is probably one about actually reading news and not just listening to bullshit like GB News or Talk TV or a lot of the mainstream channels. Here we go. 11. Investigate. Figure things out for yourself. Spend more time with long articles. Subsidize investigative journalism by subscribing to print media. Realize that some of what is on the internet is there to harm you. Learn about sites that investigate propaganda campaigns, some of which come from abroad. Take responsibility for what you communicate with others. All right. Obviously that chapter is, like all of them, that chapter is worth reading. Practice corporeal politics. Don't just sit in your armchair bitching. Get out there, march, say stuff, write stuff. That's true. Contribute to good causes, more so in the States, because they have nothing to help anybody, because it's a fully capitalist, well, now fully fascist system. This is something I was saying in a conversation recently, that people think, you have to have capitalism, because without capitalism, what are the alternatives? Communism, which was awful, millions died. Fascism, which is what America's become now pretty much, which is what Israel always has been, and there are other countries going down that path. Fascism or communism, they're actually just inevitable end results, particularly fascism, of capitalism, when everything gets so crap that you have to do the opposite extreme. Certainly in England, the only government philosophy that's ever improved the life of anyone, and then capitalists kind of lived off of its glory for about 40 years, although now they've completely stamped out, was socialism. And it's a complete anomaly. It gave us rights, it gave us the NHS, it gave us a lot of stuff. But let's not go off too much on a tangent here. So that's practice corporeal politics. Establish a private life. Why? Because when everything's known about you, tyrants, dictators will find a hook to hang you. So if you've got, anything that's not private, careful what you put out in the public sphere. Yeah? Listen for dangerous words. I'm going to have to read the introduction for that. No, sorry. Learn from peers in other countries. That's number 16. So let's go. I just read this and finished it yesterday, I think, or the day before, and I've forgotten a bit of it. Keep up your friendships abroad or make new friends in other countries. The present difficulties in the United States are an element of a larger trend, and no country is going to find a solution by itself. Make sure you and your family have passports. A lot of Americans don't have passports. And then listen for dangerous words, which is number 17. So I'll just give you the kind of intro to that. Be alert for the use of the words extremism and terrorism. That's quite topical, isn't it? Be alive to the fatal notions of emergency and exception. Be angry about the treacherous use of patriotic vocabulary. Terrorism, everything that upsets the Labour Party or the Conservative Party or Farage is either extremism, terrorism, or anti-Semitism. It's those at the moment, isn't it? And the same with, well, let's not keep saying the same things, right? Be calm when the unthinkable arrives. Modern tyranny is terror management. When the terrorist attack comes, remember that authoritarians exploit such events in order to consolidate power. There's a lot of talk now, and a lot of evidence has been destroyed that a lot of the killing done on October 7th of Israelis was actually done by the IDF. Because for them, an attack like that is just, an excuse to launch their genocide. And since then, more than once, I think Netanyahu's gone and said, this is Iran now. Sorry, Iran was all about terrorists. It's a dream he's had for 40 years to convince America to start bombing Iran. But no, it's just because they've got a nuclear bomb. Yeah, that's the one. Same bullshit they used to invade Iraq. What's that classic line? The USA is very lucky. Everywhere it takes freedom, it finds oil. Anyway, be calm when the unthinkable arrives. Number 19, be a patriot. What is an actual patriot though? Because all these assholes, these Israeli shills like, what's his name? Tommy Robinson, they came to be patriots, yeah? Set a good example of what America means for the generation to come. They will need it. This chapter is actually worth reading a bit of. Sorry, Timothy, I'm just putting your book out there. I hope you don't mind. What is patriotism? Let us begin with what patriotism is not. It's not patriotic to dodge the draft and to mock war heroes. It is not patriotic to discriminate against active duty members of the armed forces in one's companies or on legal fees, or to campaign to keep disabled veterans away from one's property. I think you might be talking about the Orange Terror. It is not patriotic to compare one's search for sexual partners in New York with the military service in Vietnam, but that one has dodged. Yeah, he's definitely talking about that guy. It is not patriotic to avoid paying taxes, especially when American working families do pay. It is not patriotic to ask those working, tax-paying American families to finance one's own presidential campaign and then to spend their contributions on one's own companies. It's obvious who he's talking about, but it applies in the West, it applies in other countries as well. So let's look at the Islamophobia that Israel so effectively exported all over the world, especially in the UK. Let's not forget Tommy Robinson is funded by those guys. It is not patriotic to admire foreign dictators. Could he be talking about Farage now, loving Putin? Or Trump loving Putin? Or Kim Jong-un? Sorry, I hope I got that one right. Oh my god. It is not patriotic to cultivate a relationship with Kim Jong-un. There we go. Or to say that Bashar al-Assad and Vladimir Putin are superior leaders. It is not patriotic to call upon foreign leaders to intervene in American presidential elections. It is not patriotic to cite Russian propaganda at rallies. Alright, so here's a good one from the end of that chapter. Democracy failed in Europe in the 1920s, 30s and 40s, and it is failing not only in much of Europe, but in many parts of the world today. It is that history and experience that reveals to us the dark range of our possible futures. A nationalist will say that it can't happen here, which is the first step toward disaster. A patriot says that it could happen, but that we will stop it. 20. Be as courageous as you can. If none of us is prepared to die for freedom, then all of us will die under tyranny. Damn. He's really good. Timothy Snyder is really good. This book was sent to me by my friend in Texas, Emily, if you're watching. Thank you. Everyone should read it. I think everyone should read it. You know, a lot of people are just not stupid and bigoted just for the sake of it, but misinformed. A lot of people are just bigoted idiots. But, you know, if you're properly informed, not from the barking media, one breaking story until it's taken over by another breaking story because the previous one was never breaking and they just want to distract you from what actually matters. That's why it's good to read printed articles. It's a summary. You know, this is what happened, we've thought about it, this is what we know now, not, oh, the latest, and, you know, stop the boats. But I hope you enjoyed that. I really like this guy. I'll probably get more of his books. On Tyranny, 20 Lessons from the 20th Century by Timothy Snyder. Highly recommended.